All right, everybody. Now we have the pleasure of sitting down with Hunter Woods from the Athlete Factory. Again, another young man that my kids have trained with, and I say young because he's definitely younger than me. But my daughters were here when we were at a club up here in Maitland. So, I understand, what he does and how he does it. Hunter really tries to perfect his craft. He's always learning, always reading. We talked one time when he does interviews for guys that come on staff, he asks them, what's the last book he's ever read, and so continual learning, lifelong learning is a passion for him with his craft. And so just want to welcome Hunter Woods.
Brett, thanks for having me.
Oh, man, glad to have you. Give us a scout report on Hunter Woods.
Yeah, well, grew up in the Panhandle, so Fort Walton Beach, Florida originally, where all the snow is, surprisingly. Went to East Carolina University, so played football up there from 2001 to 2006. And then after college football, I knew I wanted to stay around athletics. I was driven to the performance side of things and had the opportunity to go be a GA at South Florida or start at RDV as in the private world.
Okay.
And so decided to go the private route and started RDV, training no kids, just training a bunch of normal people like you and me.
Right.
And over the years, started working with athletes and chasing my passion of coaching kids and being around kids and helping them reach their potential. And so was there for 3 years and then left there and kind of started on the entrepreneurial journey, right, of trying to build a business where we can help people, and rented out space, 500 square feet of no air conditioned space for 3 years, and got to learn the business and really kind of hone in on what we do and how we do it, and building relationships with people. And then we opened our current location just over 10 years ago. So
wow.
We've been at our current location for 10 years, been training kids since 2006, and have worked with all kinds of athletes. Ran high school strength programs for 15 years, won a couple state championships out of Popka. I worked at Bishop Moore, so a lot of hours on the floor and a lot of doing things, making mistakes, learning from them, and improving. So
out of all that time, I look around your facility. There's obviously a lot of jerseys that you're proud of, and talking off camera. You mentioned a couple of guys in the NFL right now that made All-Pro. Tell us about those guys.
Yeah, so we're fortunate. We've, have guys at the highest level. One of our guys, we had the opportunity to work with, Trey Hendrickson, won the NFL sack title this year, which is really exciting. Made first team All-Pro, which is about as high as honor as you could get in the NFL, as you can imagine. And so we're really excited for him. Jalen Carter, obviously, is another guy that we've had the opportunity to work with. And second year with Philadelphia Eagles. He made second team All-Pro this year in Pro Bowl. So very proud of those guys, right? We obviously have been very blessed. We've had, I don't even know what the number is, but, hundreds of kids go on to play Division I sports and everything like that. And I would also say that we've had thousands of other kids who came through our program who may not have went on to Division I sports or whatever they may be. But I feel like we made a really positive impact in their lives, and I'm just as proud of the kids who didn't go on to do the things everybody knows about.
Right.
That came through our program, because there's a lot more of those than there are the major ones. So
right. So when a kid comes in, let's say a middle school kid, or comes in to your program, what's the process when you take a kid in the first day? Parent comes to meet with you. What do you do to evaluate them? Find out if they're a good fit?
So, first and foremost, obviously, especially with a middle school kid, this is going to be somewhat of a new environment for them. So, our number one job when the kid comes in is to make them feel comfortable here, and let them know this is a place that they can succeed at. Then after that, we want to know where they're at, obviously physically, and so we'll do the test, right, the vertical jump test, and we do a 4-jump test, and then we test their speed with lasers so we can get a baseline of where they currently are physically with the measurables. That'll be a thread throughout our whole program. So we're big on testing and evaluating our kids to make sure that our program's working.
Right.
So that's going to be an original part of what we do when they come in. And then after that, it's just a baseline of seeing where they are from an athletic standpoint, right? Even things as simple as jogging and backpedaling and shuffling and karaoke and, can they squat properly with no weight? Can they do a push-up, right? A lot of kids we get in at that age can't hardly do a push-up, can't do a pull-up, and then do they have any sort of work capacity as well? And so usually the first workout to 2 workouts, 3 workouts with us are going to be very, very foundational. And our coaches and our staff are trying to figure out what do they do well from an athletic standpoint and what are the areas of concern that we need to be focused on, and then where can we place them in within our program to make sure that we're putting them in the right place.
And I know, from my daughters being here, I know you track progress and periodically, go through those same tests that you do on day one. How often are you guys testing them and looking at them? And, do you go over the results with the kids and talk, hey, this is where you're at, or how's your process?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we for us, testing is training and training is testing. And so, we test every week with our athletes. And so, but we treat it as training. So, for us to make sure the kid is running top speed, then we have to bring the lasers out, right? Because otherwise we don't know if they're running full speed or not.
Right.
Gives them a chance to compete against their times. We keep all their data current, so if the kid hits a personal record that day, they know immediately. We try to make it a big deal in the facility, give them high fives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera,
yeah.
right? And so that they can see some wins and what they're doing that's working. Another reason why we test each week, the majority of our athletes play sports while training, like we were talking about beforehand. Very few of our athletes now don't play sports year-round.
Right.
And so our weekly testing also allows us to see where they are from a readiness standpoint. And so if an athlete comes in and their numbers are way down from what their norms are, then obviously that will lead to a conversation with them of, hey, what do you have going on? Are you not feeling well, et cetera? And so that then we can adjust their program accordingly to make sure that we're giving them the best workout possible for the fatigue or not fatigue state that they may be in.
Awesome. For those that don't know, talk a little about what is sports performance. I think it's really been probably the last 10 to maybe 15 years it has really exploded on the scene with teams and athletes. And, back in, we were talking back in the 80s when I played, there was no such thing as sports performance.
Yeah, I think for us and for me personally, I think our goal of our program and what sports performance kind of sums up to me is our job is to help you maximize your athletic ability, right? And so that's what sports performance is to me. And so, obviously, if you have a super high talent level, then your ceiling can be pretty high, right? But we've also had plenty of kids who come in here whose goal is to make the junior varsity team, right? And our job as sports performance coaches is to raise their talent or their skill level, their performance level to as high as it could go per kid. And so each athlete's going to have a different ceiling for that. But to me, sports performance is just maximizing each athlete's athletic ability.
And you've obviously seen it over the 10 plus years you've been doing this. Kid comes in that, maybe the mom wants him to get better athletically because he's just sitting at home playing video games or something. Can you take, or do you believe that a kid that's maybe not as athletic coming through the door can get a lot better athletically if he decides to put in that work?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah. I think obviously the work's an important thing, right? But what we found over the years is kind of a sliding scale, right? If you're ultra talented, then the amount of work that you have to put in can sometimes be a little bit less, which is not always a good thing, right? Sometimes the really talented kids aren't, the best ones to have into the gym because they just don't have to work hard. And then you find that the kids who maybe aren't as talented or gifted naturally, right? They have to work a lot harder to reach their peak and their ability and chase down some of these really talented guys. I think the real magic happens, and I can really tell you there's only a handful of times this happens, is when you have the elite talented kid with the elite work ethic. And I think that's where the magic happens. I think, unfortunately, I think it's just a sliding scale of talent and work ethic. And so we really believe in hard work here. I think that's a bedrock of our program. And so if a kid comes in who's really willing to work, we've seen kids go from not an athlete at all to becoming a pretty dang good athlete and go on doing some special things because of the work that they put in. And I would tell you those are probably our favorite kids that we would put up on the Mount Rushmore, so to speak, of athlete factory kids.
No, I'm in total agreement, and I think parents today, with the kids today, have kind of lost sight of that you have to work. You have to come when you're not feeling well, or you may have had a bad day at school, or you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You still have to come in and put that work in. I mean, if your goal is to play in college, period, whether it's a D1 level or junior college level, you still have to put in that work every single day. And how much of a battle is it sometimes, to get kids to, because we see, as coaches, we see more potential in kids than they'll see in themselves, or maybe even their parents see in their children. So how hard is it nowadays to get kids to understand that work ethic that they have to put in?
Yeah, no doubt. Something that we talk a lot with our staff, especially with younger athletes, is, we have to teach them how to work, right? And so, a lot of that to me is the standards that we're going to place on them, right? I'm a believer that kids are going to rise and fall to the expectations that we put on them and the standards that we put on them. And so for us and our staff is we want to put very high expectations on each athlete that walks through our doors. We want to put very high standards on them. And then our job as coaches is to make sure that they're holding the line, so to speak, and that we're teaching them what it looks like to finish a drill, what it looks like to follow instructions, be coachable, what it looks like to train through discomfort, right? And they have to learn. I know what that is. Sometimes they have to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And that is something that can be taught and can be learned, and that doesn't mean that we just have to beat them down into the ground. It has to be the hardest workout ever, right? But we have to set the standards for our athletes and make sure that they're reaching them. And then as coaches, we have to make sure that we're the consistent ones, right? Kids are going to be inconsistent, right? It's just the nature of the beast. Like you said, they got other things going on outside of here. Maybe it's a day they don't really want to come, right? They're down or whatever it may be. Our job as coaches is for us to be consistent, right? And understand that, these are the standards that we're putting on you. This is what is expected from a work ethic. And being a coachability type thing. And our job is to hold them accountable to that each time that they come in. And then eventually it becomes a learned habit for them after a while.
So how is over the years, how has sports performance changed high schools? Because, our show is geared, for all things high school athletics. So, we want to look at that, but it's also changed, at the college and even the pro levels. But just talk about the high school level. How has sports performance changed high schools over the last decade or so?
Yeah, I think it's given the high school athlete an opportunity to get high level performance training. Having worked with many high schools, especially here in Florida, strength conditioning isn't a big thing in the high school level. Other states you can go to, they have qualified high school strength conditioning coaches that are on staff. There's some guys doing some amazing work at the high school level in other states, and that's what their job is. They're the strength conditioning coach. I think what you find here in Florida specifically, a lot of times is kind of like the old school way of like the high school coach is going to run the strength program, right? Right, wrong, and different. Their main thing is coaching the sport. They're not studying, like you talked about, they're not studying the strength conditioning side of things. They're watching film, they're doing all the things of that nature. And so the high school strength program a lot of times, and it's no slight to the coaches, just kind of leaves a lot to be desired from being cutting edge and on where it should be, just because they don't have the time to do it. And so with facilities like ours, it gives a high school athlete a chance to come in and get tested, get metrics, right? Be around a high-level performance area so that, again, maximizes their potential, right? Maximizes their ability, gives them a chance to be successful on the field or court or whatever sport they're in, and then also prepares them for the collegiate level strength and conditioning program where they can step in with the opportunity to make an impact early.
So as a parent, talk about a little bit why you would want your kid coming to a place like the Athlete Factory, as opposed to, well, I'll just let my high school coach or my middle school coach, do the training because, they know it,
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, as being a high school strength coach for 15 years, I think there's a lot of advantages of being in the high school weight room that have nothing to do with the weights.
Right.
Right? You're part of the team. You're showing you're committed to being part of the team. You're struggling with your teammates, right? You're building in the off season to try to do things with your teammates, et cetera. And I think for those reasons, I would always press the kid, like, make sure you're at your team, your high school stuff, for those reasons right there.
Right.
A good place like ours, a sports performance place like ours, should be able to say, okay, Red, well, what did you do at high school today? Right? Well, most of the time it's like, well, we did power cleans, we squatted, and we benched. Perfect. Well, that leaves about a million other things that we could do, right, to help elevate your game that's not going to take away from what you're doing at the high school, right? And so I've always felt our job as private sports performance coaches is to supplement the high school program, supplement the high school coach. We're not here to take athletes out of their program or to tell the high school coach, so you don't know what you're doing, right? So you need to be coming here. It's like, no, they're doing the best that they can do most of the time. Right? With us being in a smaller facility, we can get more individualized to the athlete, right? So you don't have to come here and back squat.
Right.
We know you're doing that at high school, and you can keep on doing that at high school, right? With your coach and with your teammates, you come here, we can fill in the gaps athletically from what they're not getting at the program. And so what we found is typically a good mixture between the two where they can do both, and we don't overtrain the athlete. We're just attacking the facets of their performance that they're just not able to get to at the high school level. So
with high school kids, especially, I thought, when I was a basketball coach, we did ladders, which you have on the ground here. We did some hurdles. We do some, conditioning stuff, and we try to get in the weight room a little bit in the off season. I'll be the first one to admit that's not my realm. I like to ask guys, especially in this field, what letters do you have behind your name, right? And why is that important to you? Because there's a lot of fly-by-night guys that, oh yeah, come train with me. I'm a speed guy, or I'm this guy, or I'm that guy. But they haven't been, certified, or they don't have the commitment to their craft that you and some other guys that we're talking to have. Why is that important to you as a sports performance coach?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it shows that you have a base level of knowledge that you committed to, right? So, having the college degree in exercise science or being certified through, National Academy of Sports Medicine or the NSCA, right, shows that you've taken the initial steps to show that you have some sort of literacy in what you're trying to do. I'm a firm believer, though, that if that's where it stops, then you're probably not very good at your job. Right? And so that's like an initial base, but then after that, it's like, okay, have you learning every day? It's like, I always tell people who enter with us, like, you don't graduate with, 1,000 people with the same degree. Right? All 1,000 of you doesn't mean that you're good at what you're doing. Right? You have to continue to learn, right, and continue to push yourself from a knowledge standpoint, and then also that I just don't think you can replace hours on the floor. Right, and the kind of the 10,000 hour rule concept of getting your 10,000 hours coaching, because what's in the book and what's on the coaching floor a lot of times can be a little bit different once the things start actually getting into action. And as you know, like, coaching is fluid, right? And you have to be able to adjust and move and coach different athletes, different kids, different personalities, And, I saw a quote one time, it's like coaching is teaching and teaching is coaching. Your ability to teach as a coach, I think, is an important thing. And I just don't know if, you can learn that from a certification or a book, right? I think it's very important to get the certification to show that you have some literacy and you're committed to doing that. But then after that, it's like, all right, cool. Or you don't go get experience, or you don't go learn, continue to make mistakes, right? It's like we tell our young coaches all the time, the best way for you to get better at coaching is at the end of the day, for us to sit down and debrief and talk about things that didn't go very well.
Boys and girls, you obviously got, players from every sport in here. You do volleyball and lacrosse and football and basketball. How do you create programs and how do you coach the different sexes? Because it's obviously, our bodies are different, the way we load is different, our power and those things. How do you go about separating those two?
Yeah, I tell you, what we've kind of found, especially with the younger athlete, the middle school athlete, or even kind of starting to get into high school age, et cetera, I think with the rise in specialization of sports and the kind of demise of physical education in schools, is we get a lot of athletes who aren't very good athletes. Right? They may be really good at their sport, right? Or, whatever it may be, right? But athletically, they're just not very sound, right? And so in the beginning for us, our number one goal is to get the foundation of being a really good athlete first and foremost. Boy, girl, whatever it may be. It's like we need to be able to know how to sprint. We need to be able to know how to jump and land properly, how to properly, change directions, jump rope, right? So anybody that's listening to this, you'd be surprised. Kids can't jump rope anymore.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Unbelievable.
They have no idea how to jump rope, right? And, you're sitting there going, I've never met a good athlete that can't jump rope, right? But they can't jump rope anymore. And so I think foundationally, a lot of the athletes that come to us, just aren't very good athletes as a foundation.
Right.
So that's going to be our first thing. Is let's just generally make you an athlete, right? Boy, girl, whatever it may be. Then after that, obviously, with our girls, different sports, knowing the demands of the sports that they're playing. So obviously, our volleyball girls, depending on the positions they're playing, obviously, verticals don't be important for them. So we want to try to make sure we're attacking vertical. If it's going to be one of our football lineman type guy, typically they're not very athletic, right? And then kind of going back to the high school thing, they're getting a lot of their big meat and potato lifts in high school, right? But they come to us, and it's like, we need to turn you into an athlete, right? You're strong, but we need to turn you into an athlete. And then there's obviously the injury prevention type stuff. Girls are going to be more predisposed to ACL injuries, et cetera, so they don't have more of a single leg component to their program to try to combat some of that stuff. Our rotational athletes, our baseball players, our softball girls, our lacrosse athletes, have a little bit more of a rotational component to their program and then arm carry, et cetera, like that. So a lot of the meat and potatoes are similar.
Right.
And then we can get specific with other little things within the program to try to get them there. But I would say in the beginning, like I said, general athleticism is something that we've seen is not very high with most kids that come in, and it's just because they don't really do much. Right? They don't do, or they only do one thing. Right? They're the baseball kid who only plays baseball. He's only played baseball, and it's all he ever does. Right? And he's good at baseball, but he's not very athletic. Right? And so it's okay, cool. We could baseball specific train you, right? But it's almost I heard the analogy one time of shooting a cannon out of a canoe. Right? You have no foundation of athleticism. Right? And we're trying to do all this cool, fun, neat, sexy stuff. And it's but you don't have a foundation for us to do that upon. So the first things first is we got to get them solid foundationally as an athlete. And then we can start getting specific to gender, sport, energy system demands, all of the specific type things.
Where do you see sports performance going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think we've started to dive into a lot of this as well. I think with the more and more the technology is coming out and everything, I think that's kind of where the pendulum is kind of swinging, right? Is everything's kind of data driven, and numbers and yardage and all the speeds and all the different things. You'll see them on TV now. So ran 20-something miles per hour type thing. Right? You're starting to see that
all the analytics.
On the analytics. And so obviously we're diving into that from a speed standpoint. We're big on developing speed. And then from the force plates are starting to become something that's becoming popular. But I think you'll continue to see a shift that way. And then I feel like it's going to kind of swing back to coming back to people that can actually coach and teach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how can you take all this data and still coach and teach kids to do things? Because all the numbers and all the analytics and all those things are fantastic, and I think they have a time and place for certain kids. But I think it's going to, like anything in this field, it's going to swing back a little bit. I think it's going to lean back into the coaches that can teach, build relationships with their athletes, pull the best out of them, and then hopefully it starts to get into the high school level. I know that wouldn't be great for a place like ours, but where Florida is putting qualified strength conditioning coaches into the weight room.
I'd love that as a former high school coach.
Right? I think it's the best thing in the world for kids. So it's going to continue to go that way from an analytics standpoint. But I think at the end of the day, this is about relationships.
Yep.
Right, and there's no amount of numbers or data or tests or like all this stuff like that that can replace building a strong relationship with a young person. Yep. Helping them do things that they probably didn't think they could do. Right. And helping them reach goals that they want to reach. And, I think that's where it's going to fall back into. And so, obviously, we'll see how it goes. But, the technology is getting cheaper and more affordable for places like ours. Right. Yep. To where we can start putting some of this into our program. But I do think it still comes back to a lot of our kids generally aren't that athletic. They don't need all that. Right. Heck, if we just gave them all jump ropes, I joke with them all the time. So you know what you're getting for Christmas from us. Yeah. Right? It's going to be a jump rope.
Hunter, tell our listeners that are there, how can they get a hold of you or the Athlete Factory?
Yeah. So we're obviously online, the Athlete Factory. You can Google us or whatever it may be. Instagram, it's the Athlete Factory on Instagram, or Coach Hunter Woods, my personal Instagram page. But yeah, just look us up online. We're right here. You can set up an appointment online, do all that stuff like that, reach out with questions. But, we'll do a great job. We've got a great staff of guys that really care about our kids and are passionate about helping them, reach their goals. Yeah, we're here.
Guys, if you are in Seminole County, you're looking for a place to send your kid to get better, become more athletic in whatever sport that he or she's playing, I highly recommend Hunter and his staff here at the Athlete Factory. Again, I'm not going to push guys that my kids haven't played with or trained with. So, definitely come out and check them out. And Hunter, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule
to
meet with us. I appreciate it. Thank you.